So one of the main things I've learned about stress management is, it's coming from our ability to respond to stress or respond to the mismatch between demands and resources. So sometimes, we have situations like exams coming or projects coming. Sometimes we may not have the right resources, cognitive resources, mental resources to deal with that. So especially I remember when I was doing my master's program, I had about four courses that I need to do, but I had about 25 assignments that I was responsible to do. And then I was, I could, certain days I couldn't sleep, I couldn't, I couldn't relax, and I actually got sick. And I was wondering, why does this happen? Especially like, it's something I'm already like doing, and it's something I enjoy doing. Why am I going through this difficulty of, not being able to even properly concentrate, feeling, all over the place? Why does this happen? So what I found out was that, even though we have the want or the need to complete our task and complete our responsibilities, sometimes we may not have the right resources, especially mental resources, right, to deal with that and to handle that. And I see many of us are, either overworking too much, or not sleeping enough, or even something I actually did mistakenly for a long time, just criticizing ourselves a lot for not doing the work. And I realized that these things lead to more stress than less stress. So what I found about stress is that there's a mismatch between the demands that comes or responsibilities that come, and your ability to, essentially it was my ability to respond. So that was the major problem that I discovered why we go through stress. And as we obviously become, as key approaches, as we become more mindful or aware about our mind, about ourselves, we actually improve our ability to deal with stress better. We'll talk about, my understanding of the mind, the three levels of the mind we've been talking about. So we'll be also kind of covering that in this session. So we'll talk about how do you become more mindful, how do you become more aware about the mind, right? So that's one of the main things I recommend, that I've seen, that is major contribute to reducing stress. And the next aspect is coping skills. How do you actually cope, right? So how do you develop the skills that is necessary to handle the demands and the resources? Handle the responsibilities with the right resources. So that's one of the main things we'll be talking about in this specific session, is to understand, okay, what are the coping skills or tools or resources that you have available that you can respond to these challenges better. Okay. And one of the main things I've seen is that specifically the tools that I will be showing you in the next 60 minutes or so will help you actually reduce stress, improve your productivity, and it will reduce, especially if you're missing work or missing assignments, missing responsibilities, it will reduce that, and it will also boost your well-being, and most importantly, it will help you stay balanced under pressure. So even these, sessions that I'm using is actually me training myself to become more resilient and handle more stress, right? So because I realize if I have the skills and the practice to handle more stress, I can do more, I can be more happier. So this is one of the main things that I will be showing you how to do. And the problem is, if the stress itself remains persistent, right? This mismatch stays persistent, it can lead to anxiety. And this is something that I want to prevent everybody here, making sure that doesn't go through the unnecessary stress and burnout that many people they go through. So that's one of the main things that we'll be kind of discussing more, and how to prevent that from happening altogether. Okay. So a little bit of neuroscience. I don't know how many people will be interested, but important to understand what is the difference between being able to handle stress versus not being able to handle stress. So one of the things that is most important you will see is that, especially, many people are working here, are professionals, many of them are becoming now leaders, right? There's something called the prefrontal cortex right here, right? It's one of the most important aspects that is necessary for you to make decisions, regulate your emotions, problem solve, and also just handle your life challenges and difficulties. But what happens usually when you get stressed out, that parts of the brain actually become not as active. What actually activates is something known as the amygdala, which is actually a threat detection system. But what happens when you learn how to cope, and with proper awareness, proper mindfulness, and also with different coping systems that we'll be talking about in this session, you actually activate what is known as the prefrontal cortex, which is the higher level thinking, so that you'll be able to handle stress a lot more better, right? So this is one of the most important things that I would recommend that you learn to master, is learning how to handle stress by learning these coping systems. Okay. All right. So one of the exercises that one of the things that are starting these sessions, I really wanted to experiment with doing a little bit of exercises. Exercises doesn't mean you do physical exercises. We're going to be doing exercises on paper. Okay, so I want you to think about, what are the major things that's basically stressing you out right now, or what are the major challenges or problems that you're going through, right? So these are some of the things these are the 3 steps I generally recommend when you're identifying your stresses or challenges. And you will notice that, externalizing your problems, that means writing them down on paper, can actually reduce your stress levels, right? Because when you have, say, 3, 4, 5, even 10 problems that you're mentally working through, and you're all running all these things in your head with the problem and its tasks, solutions, all these deadlines, it can cause a lot of overwhelm, and it can mentally exhaust you, right? So one of the things that I recommend for people is, take the time to write down actual problems that, you're going through. Ideally, if you have a journal, this will become immensely valuable. But if you don't have a journal right now, grab a piece of paper, or, grab your journal right now and write down what are some of the major problems or challenges that you're experiencing in life. And then also see if you can write down some of the steps or solutions to the problem that you need to work on. So these are the 3 steps I would recommend. You can also continue this after the session, but for the next 5 minutes, right? I want you to think about what are the major problems or challenges that you're experiencing in life, right? Maybe you have to study for exams, or maybe you need to start a new job, or maybe you have work projects that is really, that is running, but you need to make sense of it. What are the ones that are there? What are the things that you need to do, right? So write down some of the major problems that is causing you stress or problems into your life, right? And then the next thing I would recommend you do is, what are the actions that you can take to make sure that, you address these solutions, address these problems. And then again, this is something you don't, this is optional. The 3rd step is optional right now, but one of the things I can tell you is, it will help you if you can format it in a way it's step by step. So one after the other, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. So I'll also show you a little bit of an example how this would look like. So one of the main problems that people come to, I wish I could start my dream career, but don't know how. So these are some of the steps that I recommend for people, right? So make sure that, write down a specific problem you have right now. Maybe it's like, I don't know how to handle my projects, or maybe I don't know how to handle my exams, assignments, right? Then what you can do, list all the assignments you have in one place, right? I have this assignment, I have this assignment, I have this assignment, so forth. And then you can start writing down, okay, this is the due date that is due, this is the due date that is due, and so forth. So write down all for your projects, or for your some of the problems you have. What are the things that you can do? What are the actions you can do to make sure that you are able to deal with it? And then write down next to it, what are the due dates that they are due, right? So just externalizing it, like I said, will help you kind of reduce the challenges you feel.